yourself then.
Yeah, we're good.
Bye, Angel.
All right, guys. I need you to mind your back be quiet so we can hear.
Everyone, welcome to this Bioethics Town Hall meeting. Today's discussion will be about budget cuts for SNAP, after-school programs, and Meals on Wheels. Everyone, please introduce yourselves and say if you're for or against it.
My name is Joseph. I'm representing disabled vets and homeless, and we've decided to go against it.
Okay, I'm Yulissa. I'm representing community leaders, and we decided we are against.
I'm Jeffrey Besso. I'm CEO of Amazon, and I'm a business owner of Amazon. Oh, I am for.
I'm Deborah. I'm a policymaker, and I'm against it.
Alright, so I'm Angel, and I'm representing the farmers, and we're against.
All right. So I guess we'll start the other way. So you can start and just tell us again if you're for or against and why.
That's
You can start. Yeah.
Alright, so as farmers, we're against the skinny budget and like all the cuts that they're gonna make. So one of the main points we're doing it is because it's really gonna affect the economy, such as in the way that if we're unable to, if we get budget cut, then we're gonna have to increase the prices of food items that we sell, and from that, it's gonna increase the prices. So it's gonna increase the prices and making it even harder for those that are in poverty and depending on the government using those food stamps that they're gonna cut down. So,
I'm against it, and it's because they want to cut a lot of after-school programs and things that allow people to eat. Reason these after-school programs exist is because some people jobs aren't done before when school is over, and so they can just leave their kids there at that place. And I mean, it's nature that people get hungry. You can't change that, and so. It's also proven that it benefits their grades and their attendance at school and their participation. And so cutting it will most likely lead to people not wanting to go to college probably in the future because you have a bad experience in going to school. Yeah.
I think I should go last because I'm bored.
No, just go ahead.
Go right now? Okay. We are for because this skinny budget, it's cutting a lot of programs like Medicaid, medical and scientific research programs, transportation cuts, education, and anti-poverty and food assistance. But most of the money that is getting cut, it will be given to businesses. And so we'll have, as a business, more money to spend and produce products and enhance them for safer equipment for our employees, and as we have more jobs, we'll be able to pay our workers an increased or slightly raised wage. And not only that, it'll expand our business because we'll have money to spend and it will improve our economy.
Well, we are against this, and because we're community leaders, we care a lot about the people in our community and the youth in our community. And a lot of the people in our community have, we have a high poverty rate, which is so a lot of people in our community are dependent on some of these programs. And after school programs helps a lot of kids, and a lot of times these programs just help people get out of a difficult time or that they're going through something difficult.
We're representing the disabled veterans and also the homeless. So we said that we're against it because, the company owner said, this is cutting benefits like Medicaid and Medicare for people who desperately need it. I mean, these are veterans who went to war, got injured in some sort of way, and they came back needing help for just basic human lives like eating, sleeping, getting out of bed, doing work. We need help with this because we can't help it. There's nothing you can do other than help, basically. I can't even explain it all. So I can't explain it all. So.
No. So, is there anything that you guys heard that you guys want to, you guys want to rebuttal, or anything that you want to answer to that you guys heard someone else say?
I got. So like you said that it would open like job opportunities and everything for people, right? So SNAP is a program that will be canceled, and SNAP has helped around 50 million people to get out of poverty. Do you think you can provide like enough jobs and profit for 50 million people?
I mean,
50 or 5?
we're Amazon.
Oh, that's 5 million. My bad. 5 million.
Big difference.
Correction. Let me say I am Amazon, so we are in an industry packaging, and there's a lot of work you can do in the industry, especially packing boxes and delivering them. But yes, there's a lot of other jobs, and we'll just provide more benefits for our employees. That's what the money is for. For your 401k, retirement plan, compensation, or insurance, depending on the business.
Go ahead.
What about for the people who can't work?
I mean, employment rate has fallen under 4% in the United States, which is really good. And if more money were to go to businesses, or what intention of the budget cut is, I mean, the employment rate will decrease gradually, substantially.
Are you saying employment or unemployment?
I mean, yeah, unemployment and employment will go up.
We also have to look at it like there's people who have disabilities and are born to who can't really work.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's going to happen with them? Because a lot of times, like, lower class includes like a lot of malnutrition, and cutting the programs will include more malnutrition, so like more disease and illness. So they will most likely not be able to work. So how can they benefit from having the opportunity to get a job but not be able to obtain it physically?
I'm just going to start by saying there can be some opportunities for disability. I mean, especially like support programs that would help them, and motivation. Like,
I mean, the support programs are like WIC and SNAP, and that's what's going to
I don't need that. Okay, well, my part as a business owner, I said we should not cut the budgets, because then the budget cuts wouldn't be helpful to us either as a business, because then for example, food stamps help the people get their food, so that helped them come to us making business. And for me, our sales are basically the more sales we have, the more people could work. And so I was saying we should not cut the we should not cut the budgets, because then we could have more business coming, and that includes with that, for example, I have food stamps. I have $200 a month to use, so then more I will go to the grocery store more, because I have the help needed to go go get myself food. But if we had cut the budget and I was only to spend probably at most 100, it's not much for a family, or even sometimes people have to think about not just themselves, but those who they live with. And then I said that if we don't cut the budgets, we could provide people more food, with the budget cuts, with Medicare and stuff. If they're in well health, they could go and get a job or like stuff like that. So I said I don't want to cut the budgets.
So you're like against skinny budget?
Yeah.
So like everybody here is against skinny budget?
I actually have a question for policymakers. So funny. All right, so are you aware that the majority of the money that would be redistributed would be going toward the defense budget?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so and you're still against the skinny budget?
Well, yeah, because like it will benefit like policymakers, right? It will give us increase our income and everything. But what makes us like higher is lower class, right? So if we keep on pushing like the lower class until it doesn't exist, then what's the point of earning more money than if we're just going to be as equal as everybody else in the end?
Okay, so what you're saying is you'd rather be above people than equal with them.
No, what I'm saying is that to make the economy work, we need it to be like stacked, right? We need people to do certain jobs that other people can't manage because of the way they live.
Okay, but so you are still against it though, even though the majority of it would go toward defense budget.
Yeah, because it would still allow people to live, so it benefit both because it will include people to have a meal after school, like with the after school programs, and it'll help, everybody live.
Okay, so you're okay with leaving the nation defenseless?
How can I leave it defenseless?
You said you don't want more money to the defense budget.
Well, I mean, if I increase the defense, what am I going to defend? If in the end everything's just going to be like pushed down, because it's going to increase one part of what the economy is and not the other one. So if one keeps increasing, and the other one is eventually not going to really exist.
I know it's not really my place, but we do spend the most of our money on our defense budget. I know that we constantly do need defense from many countries, but you don't need to overdo it to a point where you're pushing people into poverty.
I mean, here's my question. What's so wrong with poverty in America? Like, the poor people in America live better than some rich people in other places, right? So there isn't a lot of starvation and things in America.
Can you explain?
There are some countries and some villages where the people who are doing well are doing worse than poor people in America. The poor people in America still have food. They still have shelters they can go to. There's still things
Because of these programs.
Welcome.
That's why.
Can
Can you name a few of these countries? Because I've never heard of that.
There are.
How can they still be living well
I really
if they won't be able to have access to food stamps or to programs that will allow them to have food?
So let's say in India, I believe there's there are parts of India where there's a 600 person to toilet ratio, to one toilet ratio. There are places, which is why disease is so high in those places. So there are places where people who are sort of doing well, they may have a toilet is worse than people in America, poor people in America.
But why are we talking about other countries if this is an American problem?
You already compare that.
Why not?
Well, you can't compare it because
she was comparing our economy to other economies.
We have access to more advanced resources than another country has. So basically, you can't really compare two countries that are in two different regions.
Well, hey guys, it's too much conversation in the back. We can't hear the people in the front. All right.
Like you can't compare countries that are in two different regions and have access to many different things. So yeah.
Does India have is it separated also lower class, middle class, higher class?
So I believe the United States is the only place that has a middle class. I'm not. I think so. Yeah. So the middle class isn't a natural phenomenon. It's something that was forced into our economy. Naturally, there are either rich people or poor people. There's normally no middle ground. It's normally just rich or poor. The United States has kind of forced that into existence, and we're slowly losing our middle class.
So you're saying...
Sit down. You got something to say?
You
got something to say?
No, come on.
Sit down. You got it. No.
All right, so there are people who have sat down who haven't said anything yet. You guys have something to add?
That's what I was talking
I mean, you're
about.
going to sit down.
So, as we know, President Trump told the American people that he would help people create jobs and more economic security. But this budget is going to do the exact opposite because they're going to cut transportation, which would cut the transportation for Amazon to be able to transport all their goods and stuff to be able to sell. The cut in education, this cut in scientific, medical research, clean air and clean water, which we as farmers need to plant our stuff. Do you guys want dirty water in all of your food? Do you guys like food? How about that? Let's start at that. Do you guys like food? Yeah.
So, some people might say that the reason why there are people hungry in the U.S. is not because of a food shortage, but because of other factors. It's not that we don't make enough food.
Yes, because 40% of the food that the American people waste is either uneaten or spoiled, and it's because people are unable to afford it. And with this bill, they're going to cut the amount of budgets for the farming and agriculture, which will cut the amount of food available, which will then increase the prices that people need to pay for the food. And people can't afford food these days because we were mostly living in poverty.
Oh, yeah, that was good. That was good. Okay, so you're saying that even though those foods are spoiled and everything, they still give it to the property? Like, those foods are still getting, the cans that you donate,
yes, like
that
in
people
food
donate,
kitchens and stuff, in
they
those
go
pantries.
straight to the property.
In the pantries?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
all the food is not always fresh. I also help the community. I worked in cafeterias like that. All the food is not up to date. It's spoiled. And they get into the
You guys are for this thing or against it? Because I heard that you guys were for at first, and you're starting to talk about that you care about food, but this bill is going to cut food stamps, which a lot of people need.
The bill is like it's gonna pick people. So it's gonna pick the people that really needs it, and from the greedy people who don't. Because there are people who has food stamps that don't really need it.
That can be able to work and stuff. Yes.
So that's what the bill is going to do, from what I see.
Also keep in mind that there are more than one business owners in the United States.
There is. So it could be from franchise or from Amazon or from Bed Bath Body Works, whatever you want. Anything.
I was just using your guys' example as the CEO of Amazon over there.
Yeah.
I have a question. So you said that some people don't deserve food stamps. Who are you coming for?
Anybody who is able to sustain a good job and has a good life.
See, that's where you're wrong, because food stamps is also based off of income. So they see how much you earn, and they take away food stamps from there. So if you're earning a high amount, you won't be qualified for food stamps.
But if you're good to have a substantial life, and because I'm not on food stamps, and my mom was on food stamps at one point, and I understand. I'm not trying to disrupt anything.
I know I'm not coming for you. I'm coming for what you said.
I know.
I'm gonna use that now.
And like, if we're looking for incomes and everything, and going from that, but some people, like, we could go off of incomes and say, okay, this person made that much, so they don't need it. But there's also other factors to where, like, say if you can't, like, you're working, you have a job, you have food on the table. It's not like, let's go from a poor person who doesn't have nowhere to live. That's where I'm coming from. Who doesn't have nowhere to live, cannot even keep a piece of bread on the table. If you have food on the table and can have a home, that's what I'm getting. If you have a home and you can call that place a home and you have food that you can actually eat day to day, then I don't see what's the point of food stamps with a person who doesn't have a home, cannot go to a warm bed, cannot even eat a crumb, and is scavenging on the freaking sidewalk looking for something, can't have food stamps or is trying to get food stamps.
See, I understand what you're saying, but have you taken into account housing authority, which also bases it off of income? So even if you're in housing authority, that bases it off of how much you get, which is like rent income based. So then there's people who's living there even though they don't make a lot of money, so they're they can live there, right? So that's called your home. But they still can't afford, after they pay rent and their light bill and other bills that they have, they still can't afford to pay for food. So are you saying even though they have a home, they shouldn't be able to get food stamps?
If they can barely pay for their rent and their home, what job are they working?
No, it's low income based. It's rent income based. So say you get $400 a week, right? So you might be paying $300 a month or so for your rent. Then you have your light bill.
then you have other bills that you have to incorporate into there because some of them make you pay gas bills. So my question to you is, after all those bills come into place and then you don't have a lot of money left, how are you going to feed yourself?
It depends on it depends on the household. It depends on if you have kids or not. It depends on if you're
subsidized
alone.
housing.
Yeah, it depends on single living and all that. Look, you're doing it more to it. I think you're going
Do you know how much the middle class, like how much middle class makes? Like how much you have to make to be considered middle class? It's $250,000. You know how much the regular person here in Wyandotte County alone makes? $14,000. That's nowhere near being close to $250,000 to be able to not need to get food stamps.
I think $250,000 is like.
No, that is middle class.
$250,000.
Yeah,
That's the bottom row for middle class.
Yeah, that's the part.
Where? In Kansas?
I can check.
200. That's a lot of money.
Hold on, let him check that.
Okay, I just wanted to say something real quick. I think I understand what you were saying, and I got what you were saying too. So I think what was happening here. First of all, she didn't say that people didn't deserve it. You came in and said that. She didn't say people didn't deserve food stamps. She was just saying that there are some people on food stamps who do not need it, and that is true. There are some people on food stamps who could go to work and sustain themselves who do not need food stamps. That is true. I don't think she was trying to say we should take it away from everybody else who does need it. She was just saying that if we're going to take away some of the budget, we can take it away from the people who don't need it and keep the people who do need it on it. I think is what she was trying to say.
Yeah.
So you're talking about people who don't have jobs or just
people who can get jobs? I personally, I'll put myself out there. I personally know people who could get jobs and are just living off of food stamps just because.
Yeah.
Those people do exist, and I think that's who she was talking about.
Yeah, because I know someone personally.
Okay, there we go. All right, so you don't have to get so upset. I think that's exactly who she was talking about, and not just she wasn't saying like lower income people don't need.
Oh, if you're looking at the one from 2014, I don't want to hear it because I already looked it up. Also. Anyway, go ahead, Darius.
It's not 2014.
Oh, they're using the statuses from 2014, but it's a 2017 article.
2015, hold up.
Okay.
Now it's 2015.
Hold up, wait a minute. Hold up, no, hold up.
Wait, Ramona.
Some people got
Come on, Maria.
There we go. That makes more sense. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Okay, 55,000 was the number that we found.
It's only getting lower.
Okay, that's the middle of that's middle class. 55,000.
the start of the middle class.
That makes sense. 250,000 cannot be possible. They can't be possible. Okay.
No one's middle class.
All right. Last thoughts. People who have just come in who haven't said anything. Last thoughts. Something you guys have heard that you agree with or disagree with.
Well, okay. I have a question. So, we had that thing between the businesses and the disabled veterans, right? So some people might ask, in terms of like increasing welfare, how does that help people in the long run? How does that promote self-sufficiency? So I guess what I was trying to pose a question is I was posing a question that at what point does welfare become less of helping out the poor, and at what point does it just become a handout, preventing people or creating a dependency on welfare? Because we did mention that there are some people that do become dependent on welfare. Does anybody else have an answer?
Like you said, well, I think that there's not depending on the kind of person, I don't think there's a point where they should stop being dependent on, as you said, a handout, because they're giving, like for us disabled veterans, they, risk their lives for America, and this budget, it's lowering the rate of them getting a job, and it's lowering the rate of benefits going to the veterans, and so I think that there shouldn't be a point where they should stop depending on handouts.
A point where so you think there should not be a point? Are you? I guess what you said to me basically kind of means you said there should not be a point where they should stop depending on handouts. So are you saying that it's fine to be like completely dependent on it?
If they are not in need of a handout, if they're not in need of a handout, then it's okay for them to not be dependent on it. But if they are, in poverty and homeless, then I feel like there's not a point where they should stop being dependent on it.
I guess what I was asking is like, not necessarily that, but like, okay, we have people in poverty, and you're assuming you don't want to cut welfare. She's not ready for that question. No, I'm just asking, so there are people that, in poverty that do need welfare. I guess what I was asking is, most people don't want to stay in poverty or stay homeless. So I guess I was asking in what ways, or how could we combat against people that depend on it? That's probably a better question.
I think I got an idea, but I don't know if it's going to still too popular with the big companies. What we all know is that big companies, there's been times where big companies can pay their ways out of taxes. So my idea would be taking some of the money from big companies and giving that more to welfare instead of letting them keep their entire wealth. It would make more sense to do that than take away what people already don't have.
Right, but building the country for the rich. So when you're in poverty, it's going to be that 10 times more harder to like get out of it, because like the way they're shaping the economy now is like it's built for the higher class, and like the lower class is like falling like behind very far. So yeah.
All right, it's actually time to go. It's time to wrap it up. Yeah, we ran out of time. These things ain't going.
Well, because that wasn't my question.
I know. I was like,